Hello everybody and welcome. Really excited to be here. Hopefully the sound is working. How are we doing? Is everybody able to hear the sound right now? I'm not seeing any microphone volume here happening. Everybody. Oh, let's try this out here. Maybe I need to move a couple of things around. Hey there, everybody. Are you able to hear me now? Uh-oh. Uh-oh, everybody. Are you able to hear me? Give me a signal, somebody. Looks like maybe not. Loud and clear. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, hashtag. That was a little bit of technical issues there. Really grateful for you all. Good to see you there, Kalman and David. Good to see you as well. Thank you all for stopping in this evening. Really excited to be here. We're looking down the barrel of about 5 or 6 weeks until we are ready to rock and roll down the Colorado Trail. If you're choosing to take off this year down the trail, or maybe just section hike, maybe you're going to go do the loop, whatever it is, welcome. Glad you're here. And really amped to talk to you about lots of different things going on with the trail. I want to give you a little bit of a picture of what to expect tonight. One thing is, first and foremost, if you have questions, feel free to toss them in the chat. Not only will I try to answer all of your questions, but I will also do my best to point you in the direction of folks in the chat who I know can answer those questions as well, because we have just a really terrific community here tonight who can answer all sorts of questions about everything from gear, hiking with dogs, hiking as a solo person, hiking for the first time, hiking with a group, maybe even hiking later in the season, earlier. We've got folks who can speak to hiking later on in your years, or maybe if you're earlier in life, maybe you're just graduated high school or college. We have people who can answer those questions. So feel free to toss those in the chat as you have them. Feel free to comment as well. It's one of my favorite things about these live streams is really seeing what happens in that chat. So a couple of things that I want to cover tonight and kind of address or deal with. I don't know what the word is. I want to talk a little bit about snow this year, because we are looking down at just an enormously snowy year. And behind me here, what you're seeing is the area just past Kokomo Pass. And this was on a very low snow year. And this was about mid-July. So we're still seeing snow up on this past mid-July in a low snow year. So this year we are seeing just record numbers for inches of snow on a lot of these passes. So we have some special considerations. We're going to talk a little bit about what you can do to prepare should you decide that you are going to take off, say, that standard July 1st time. We'll talk a little bit about why I don't think you should start before that. And even starting July 1st is maybe not a great idea for a lot of folks, especially if you don't have a lot of that experience. But we'll talk a little bit about that and kind of make sure that everybody is kept abreast and knows what's going on, or at least knows how to approach a really challenging snow year. We want to talk a little bit about resupply in towns and sort of philosophically deal with that. So not necessarily tell you stop here, but I want to also talk and get everybody's thoughts in the chat there about how you would approach resupply. One of the things that's really unique about the Colorado Trail, and one of the ways that it's a really accessible hike for new backpackers, is it crosses roads frequently. So you have lots of opportunities to go into town. So even though you'll be in wilderness areas, or you'll be very remote, generally speaking, you'll still have plenty of opportunities to go into town. So barring special diets, you really can make it down the trail pretty easily, not shipping resupply packages ahead, but that requires a little bit of know-how and kind of understanding. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk a little bit about gear. I'm going to tell you a story. That's a really fun one, so stick around for that. You won't want to miss this story. It involves all sorts of magical creatures, motorcycles, and just one of my favorite stories to tell about my first time camping alone. And so you'll want to be here for that. I'm going to talk to you about a little bit of my favorite segment, segment 23. So I just want to focus in on one of my favorite segments to give you a sense of what that looks like. And then I think that probably covers it. Maybe we'll get to all of that. Maybe we won't. Who knows? It's an adventure. We're all taking this journey together, right? Which, side note, can we quit calling everything a journey, right? It's not a home buying journey, right? It's not we're not going on a car buying journey. We're buying a car, right? So maybe we stop calling everything a journey. I don't know. Maybe I'm just cranky tonight. The story here, as you can see there from details at Girl Plus Dog Adventures, it likely will involve leukotape and more likely involve snacks of some capacity. But plot twist, Doesn't involve either of those. So let's get started here. The first thing we need to talk about is really the snowpack this year on the Colorado Trail. So on the Colorado Trail, there's a lot of snow this year. I've noticed on the Facebook group, a lot of folks are saying that they're taking off early because their schedules don't permit them to go later. It's understandable that your schedule might be tight, but I want to give you a sense of really what you're looking at and how, it might not be a great idea. In fact, if you start in early to mid June, your chances of sort of finishing are very, very low unless you are a very experienced mountaineer and you have lots of time, which is sort of the irony that if you take off this year early, you still need the same amount of time, or you need to finish the same date that you would if you started later in the season, because the snow will slow you up. And by slow you up, I mean you're dealing with some spots where there are still 5-6 feet of snow on the ground right now. So it's not just post holing, but you won't be able to see the trail or trail markers at a lot of places if you start too early. So it's a matter of safety. So that's why I'm sort of addressing it tonight and making sure everybody knows. So one of the best tools that we have available to us, I'm going to share this with you. This is the Snowtel site. So it's SNOTEL, and you can go to this yourself and sort of get a daily update. And I just want to give you a sense of what this looks like on the snow report. So when we're looking at this here, you can kind of see. Let me know, can you see my arrow there, my little cursor there? It looks like you can. So here, the Colorado Trail, just to give you some sense, kind of comes down here, and then it hooks over here, and then kind of goes roughly along this line, the border between that sort of purplish and the aqua color, and then it kind of spits out over here and cuts down to Durango. Now, here's the thing about this that's really kind of deceptive, and one of the things that everybody here needs to know: a lot of the Colorado Trail exists in this area and exist in this area. So when you're looking at that, you've got a lot of this, especially early season. And what's tricky about this is notice how much of this is on the high plains. So over here, you've got the high plains in this section, and over here, you've got lots and lots of space on the high plains. So there's no snow here, but if you can kind of see the relief map, or the sort of the gradation there, these are the mountains, right? So this is really offsetting the average, meaning this is taken into that average. So here, this corner is bringing up that average, and this is all bringing it down. So this is an incredibly snowy year, right? So we are dealing with just a really, really snowy year. Here we have nearly 400% the average snowfall, right? So 400%, four times. It's just an enormous amount of snow that we're dealing with. And the general recommendation is not to start until July 1st. So here we're basically dealing with the situation Hey there, everybody. I don't know what's going on. It's the internet. The snow really, really, it's getting everywhere. That one is just me. You're right there, Christine. Thank you for pointing that out. It is really just mine. Sorry, everybody. I don't know what's going on, but hopefully this will be stable. I don't have the little warning saying known as Chicago. And so over there in Chicago, it's just, very remote, very rural. And so the internet's not so great there. So Basically, what we're dealing with here is a snowy year. You want to make sure that you're ready. And even if you're heading out in July, you want to start considering taking along some of these micro spikes. These are from Catula. So they are micro spikes, just to give you a sense of what they look like here. They will strap to any pair of shoes, basically, and they will give you that added traction when you are crossing over lots and lots of rocks and where there's sort of an icy sheen. And there was snow actually in the mountains behind me this weekend even. So there was snow as recently as the last couple of days. And so here, basically, these are helpful, particularly if you start hitting patches of ice, not just rocks that have a little bit of ice, sort of a dusting. Sometimes when it rains and it's kind of in that 35 degree and then it drops down, you'll get this sort of slick of ice. These are not necessarily as great for that, but that's a pretty rare situation. But these are about $75, give or take. There is a link below if you want to sort of do some research, so you can check that and see if you are interested in carrying these. I personally don't necessarily carry them, but you might want to carry them and then consider sending them back if you don't use them. So that's a really good idea. Another sort of less aggressive option, and these are good, especially if you live sort of in a city, are where there's sidewalks that can get icy, are these guys here. And these are exo spikes, and these are tiny. They basically look like a miniature version of the ends of a metal trekking pole. So these are great. They kind of do the same thing. They fit to your shoes the same way. They're a little less expensive, but they're much smaller. They have a lot less utility, generally speaking, but they are good to have on there in the they're good to have on there in the event that you're going to hit some of those sort of snowy, icy patches. And especially if you're leaving early July, you want to be ready with those. And again, just be ready with time, because if you leave early, the snow will slow you up. If you leave later, you probably will finish with a lot of those folks that finish a little bit earlier. And that's basically it. And so keep me posted. Let me know what you're thinking about this. I do know that post-holing is really, it's just a nightmare situation for a lot of folks, and it can lead to sprained ankles. It can lead to some really scary sort of situations. So just be safe out there, everybody. Check the SnowTel. In years past, the Colorado Trail Facebook group and the CTF would post updates to the snow clearances, right? So they would report every Tuesday which sections were clear. That's no longer happening. And so it's a real bummer. I think that was a really great resource for a lot of folks, and I know everybody really counted on that. And so it's not happening anymore, but that's not my decision. So just know that it's going to be later this year. So it's a really good thing to try to figure out how you can move things around. Fortunately, we live in a country where there are a lot of really great hikes available. And so if you're looking for an alternate hike because you figure, I want to do a hike in June, but the CT doesn't seem like it's going to be accessible, you can reach out to me on Instagram and we can talk over all sorts of different options. I'm happy to help you figure out alternatives if need be, so that you can stay safe as well. I want to address this question here. I didn't have a chance to read it just yet, so I'm hoping it's a great one, and I'm sure it is. Happy Storm there. Isn't snow an issue depending on when you get to a particular section? Yes, this is a great question. So starting the 1st of July, planning 8 to 12 miles per day, won't run into snow. I think you're right. Kathy, I think you're right. You will likely not run into snow. And at 12 miles a day, the first time you're really going to run into snow is likely to be somewhere around mile 73. So day 5 or so, you might have some snow near Georgia Pass. They just got snow this weekend, but it's likely to be passable snow. So you're likely to be in great shape. I think that's a great time to start, especially if you're a slow hiker. And I want to underscore here that the thing here is, you can start whenever you want. You just want to make sure you're giving the snow time to melt, because the snow, when I was working as a college professor, the snow didn't care when I had to go back to classes. The snow is what the snow is. And so there are times when the snow is just crazy. Now, the good news, and this is the silver lining for everybody, is that when you look to your data book, the data book will indicate when there's a source of water that's infrequent. It might not be running every year. Those will likely be running all throughout, because the snow melt will be going. And the other good news about the Colorado Trail is that there are bridges over all the major crossings. So you don't really run into any of those, the river crossing issues that you might see, say, on the John Muir Trail. Now, I do want to point out here, we've got a genuinely, probably the most important comment we're going to get today. And this comes from David Offgrid. Says, my beard is on point, and you're damn right it is, man. This is, I tell you, it's a topiary garden. I can just do whatever I want. Come back next week and I'll have a hippo dressed as a ballerina trimmed into this beard. Get ready, everybody. And send in your designs. What do you want me to have? Maybe flames up the side like I'm a race car, maybe a shark like I'm a fighter jet. I don't know. I could go any direction. Just keep me posted on what you think might be cool for this year's hiking season. So check this out, everybody. We got some cool stuff coming up. This is this is one of my favorite things. I've got a little surprise for you all. I don't know if this is going to be hokey or not, but let's go ahead and see if this works. It is time, my friends, for all right, so we're going to talk about some gear. I want to talk to you about one specific piece of gear that is just invaluable to CT hikers, specifically kind of going back to what Happy Storm was asking there about starting later in the season or walking slower. That's a great idea. And this here, a sun umbrella, is a great plan. Now, if you're looking in the chat there, you'll see my hiking buddy there, winging it, and he hikes with just the $5 Walgreens umbrella, and it works fine. So if it's between one of these fancier ones and a you want a fancier umbrella or a cheap one, go with the one you can afford because it will work just fine. Now, here's the difference in a sun umbrella is first, it's got the reflective surface. And then if you remember when you were a kid and you were doing school photos and they had that weird guy, but behind him had that sort of reflective, the light that would flash and you get blinded, and then you'd have a picture of you with your eyes squinting and it'd go in the yearbook to be remembered forever. Well, that's basically the same material here. So you see there's no light that gets through this. And it's a really good thing to have a great one of these. They're pretty stable. They're sturdy. They work well in hail when you get later on down the trail because you likely will run into at least 1 or 2 hailstorms at some point. Now, you can always put up your tent, by the way. So don't let hail scare you. Know that with any of these storms, you can put up your tent and wait out a storm. That's a totally fine option. These are great specifically early in the hike and later on. So segment 2, that is just one of the toughest segments for sun. These are absolutely stellar. And here, Scott, you are nailing it right here. This is actually my favorite type of umbrella is the 6 Moon Designs. It's really great and really helpful for rainstorms. It's got just a ton of these. Here we've got Tim Mason here, umbrellas, an MVP. He is a very seasoned class of 2022 CT hiker. He knows what he's talking about. And so here, basically, a sun umbrella is a great idea. I put a link below for the 6 Moons one. I promise I'm not trying to like sell a bunch of stuff to you. I just want to give you an easy link. And if you use it, great. If you don't, totally fine. And I want to remind you all, you don't need the fancy gear all the time. You don't need the expensive option. So the one I linked to is $40. If you can find a $5 one, great. One of the perks, though, of the 6 Moons is that you can get one that is under 9 ounces, is the one I was holding, or you can get one that is under 6 ounces, which is about $10 more. So the weight gets really, really small in a lot of these, and it's a really great resource to have, and they are really sturdy as well. So I hope that you'll consider picking one of those up, and don't lose sight of the fact that mornings are your friend. They are absolutely your friend. Now, if you're winging it, they're not your friend at all. He likes evenings, which is also similarly true. Now, mornings, if you can get up and put in miles, I wake up early in the morning, like 5 in the morning, get on trail by 5:30, have just a small snack, maybe something with some caffeine, something like Crystal Light with caffeine in my drink that. Then I hike until the sun rises, at which point then I put out my tent to dry and I make my hot breakfast. So I'm basically doubling up duty here and making sure that I am getting kind of good time in, but also making miles before that sun comes up. I want to share this comment here. This is going back, I believe, to the sun umbrella, but I just love this name here. Malarkey and Shenanigans. What a great name for, I don't know if that's your YouTube channel. I'm sorry if I'm messing this up, but I absolutely love that one. And absolutely the sun umbrella is just critical. It's really crucial. So think about picking one of those up. Now, let's talk a little bit about just resupply in general. I want to share with you my philosophy, or sort of what I've picked up on here is we've got a lot of folks who ask about resupply, and it is tricky if you have dietary restrictions. So if you have dietary restrictions, you absolutely are going to need to think ahead about sending food ahead, because a lot of times when you get into some of the smaller towns, say the Lake Cities, the Creeds, Silvertons, you won't necessarily find a lot of variety for somebody who is maybe vegetarian or gluten free. You may have a lot of different restrictions that you need to abide by to stay healthy and happy on the trail. But for most people, you can go into town and you're dealing with places where thousands of people live. So you're not walking into the wilderness on an episode of Alone, setting up snare traps trying to catch a rabbit, right? That's not the situation here. That for a lot of folks, what you're dealing with is walking for a while, getting into a town. And then what you really need to know are a number of standard dishes that you can go in and get. And the good news is it's a lot cheaper. So a lot of times, or in the past, what I've done is when I've sent resupply boxes, the problems I've run into is I always sent too much food. So I ended up losing a bunch, wasting money. But I also would send myself a box of groceries and pick it up at a post office next to a grocery store selling the same groceries. So I'm shipping myself groceries instead of letting the grocery store pay for the grocery shipping, and then I'm just picking it up. I want to walk you through a few different items that are always really good options for you to kind of keep in your back pocket by way of meals that you can take with you that you can often find just about everywhere. Of course, for breakfast, you'll have things like oatmeal is always cheap. It's always really easy. Pop Tarts, a lot of people like. You can also get just the sort of the little Debbie donuts. Those work really nicely because you need a lot of energy and you need those calorie counts to be up. I promise you, you're going to burn off more calories than you eat, no matter where you go. And so, any of those junk foods typically end up having a lot of those calories that you might need. Also, remember things like peanut butter and tortillas are always a great thing to have in your back pocket if you're not allergic to peanuts. If you are allergic to peanuts, then I don't know, man. I mean, whew, I'm sorry. But basically, the peanut butter tortillas work really nicely. You can always have that. You can also cheese carries really nicely for a matter of up to like 7 days. You can take a block of cheese, and what will happen is it will get oily, but it won't go bad. So cheese is a great way to go. I personally like to get the single serving cheeses and put them on, say, tortillas and do something like that. As Calman saying here from Everyday Backpacker, peanut butter and honey on tortillas. I think honey is a great route. Let's come back to that honey in just a minute because I think that's a great option as well. Actually, let's not come back to it. Let's talk about it right now. So here's the thing. Honey is a tricky one because if it comes open in your backpack, then it's going to make everything sticky. But there's so many ways to get around this. So one is if you do get one of the honey bears, just put it in a Ziploc bag, make sure that it's taken care of. And the nice thing about honey is it literally never goes bad. Doc Watson here asked, honey in bear country. Absolutely. And what you do is you're going to sprinkle some around the tents of your friends. And that way, if a bear does come into camp, somebody's got to go. It's going to get one of you. It may as well be the people who didn't bring the honey into bear country here. You can get individual packs of honey, as Kalman points out here. And here's what I want to mention, because now is the perfect time to start working on this. Every time you go out to a restaurant, sort of one of those places where you order and then they bring your food to you. So think about like a Qdoba, maybe even, I mean, maybe places where you grab the food at the counter. So a Chipotle, or maybe you're going to a Panera Bread. Whenever you go to any of those places, Starbucks is another great one for this. Look at what they have in the pouches and don't think, how am I going to put this on my food today? Grab a couple things that you think could go with your food. So for example, you can get Tapatio in the individual pouches. You can get honey in the individual pouches at Starbucks. Starbucks will also carry brown sugar in individual pouches, which is another great option. So basically, it's a great time to start stocking up and figuring out exactly where you can get these little add-ons that will help make the meals that are going to be a little bit boring by the end of it a lot more exciting. Now, also one of the options, or one of the best ways to go for meals, is I like to go without a lunch. And what I mean is I still eat, but I bring snacks. And so every couple hours while I'm on trail between breakfast and dinner, I'll eat a snack. So it could be a candy bar, it could be a Cliff Bar, which sometimes you got to take one for the team, you know? So it could be a Cliff Bar, it could be a granola bar, it could be a peanut butter tortilla, it could be honey stingers or a Stroop waffle, a number of those different ones. But it's nice to just have a little something every hour or so to kind of keep that energy going. And you're going to be so hot and sort of working so much that you're not really going to get super hungry. In fact, it's kind of the opposite, that you end up eating a lot less because you're kind of at elevation. So here, this is a great idea from Adam. Get your watch to remind you, because again, you're going to burn more calories than you can put in your face. It's just the reality of a hike like this. So here, making sure that you keep stoking that fire as you go. Remember, especially early in the hike, you're not going to be hungry, but you need food in your stomach. So the people who suffer will have a really, really hard time because they need to eat food, but they don't want to eat food. So you have to force yourself to do that. So here, that's basically what we're dealing with, is making sure that you have some food coming in at all times. Dave at Off Grid here mentions olive oil. These can also come in individual pouches if you order them offline, or you can get a great container and just store some. But olive oil is a great one just to add to any meal. Doesn't matter what it is, put some in there to get that calorie count and that fat up, because you need the fat. You need that fat to come into your system so that the fat soluble nutrients will get into your system and you keep yourself going. So olive oil is a great one to have in there. I also like ghee, Ghee, and there's a company called Tin Star that makes individual pouches of ghee, which is basically extra buttery butter. So they take butter and boil it down until it's really just the butter fats, and it's absolutely clutch for a lot of different meals. Let's talk about a couple of other meals that are worth getting at any grocery store, and we'll basically walk through some of my favorites. And if you have favorites, if you have some meals that you trust and count on every time you go into the woods, share those with us. We've got some folks already chiming in the chat, but let us know. So some of my favorites are going in and picking up an individual pouch, one of those sides of mashed potatoes from Ore-Ida. And then you can either get, if you are a meat eater, you can get all sorts of bacon from the real bacon bits from the salad section's really good, with maybe a little bit of that tapatio on top. You can add some of that cheese that I told you to bring. That works really nicely. And the really nice thing about this is it's dirt cheap. So do not buy those Mountain House meals for every meal. They're great for a little bit, but these are going to be smaller meals that are less expensive, just as healthy, because none of them are really healthy, even the Mountain House meals. I guess you could find some with there are a couple of companies that make really healthy versions of this. If you have the wallet for it, go for it. They're delicious, but you get the idea. For most people, you're going to want to go really inexpensively. And a classic one here from Kalman is Nor side. So picking up a Nor side and then going and getting, if you like tuna or the salmon, getting the little individual pouches. Sometimes you can get lucky and get some Spam, which I know you probably are thinking, Spam, what are you thinking? That looks so awful. I promise you, if you put Spam on a skillet and get it nice and hot, get a little bit of crust on it, you will eat Spam for the rest of the summer. It's absolutely phenomenal. And often you can get the individual pouches of it. And it's great because you have the salt coming in, which you're going to need a lot of salt, right? That's one of the things you're going to lose quite quickly with the sweat. So you'll find salt all over your clothes, and you don't need it all over your clothes. You need it in your body. Spam is just really great. It has electrolytes, which is what plants want. And so Spam is just absolutely delicious. They have the flavored tuna pouches you can add to them as well. The tuna pouches work particularly well, in my opinion, with the Nor sides. So Nor sides are typically about $1.20 each, and the tuna pouches are about $1.20 each, and they are the perfect size for an individual serving for one person. You can also get chicken that way in the pouches. I don't personally love that taste, but I also don't mind eating a lot of trash when I'm on the trail. So know that that's the case. Now, one of my absolute favorite dishes when I'm on the trail is what I call poor man's pad thai, which is you take spicy ramen, right? So you cook up your ramen in your pot, you drain off most of the water, leave about a half a cup, and then you put a big scoop of chunky peanut butter on top and stir it up. And it is just like pad thai. It's absolutely phenomenal. It's dirt cheap. And if you're going for, say, a 6-day stretch, you get 3 of those ramen pouches and a jar of peanut butter, and you have enough for 3 dinners. And it takes a lot of that stress out. Now, for people who need a lot of variety, that's not necessarily going to work for you. But for me, I'll eat whatever. And as we're seeing here is, there are a lot of people in the chat here. Take a really close look at what people are mentioning, because there are lots of foods that can sort of offset these high fat, high preservative type foods that are really processed. And I get that this is probably not for everybody, but all the same, just know that that's the case. But here, Dave, you're hitting a home run right here. Fresh meal for the first night back on the trail is such a great idea. So this is something so many people overlook, and I do it myself sometimes. When you get into town, your first night back on trail, you don't have to worry about refrigeration for most things. Now, you don't want to make a chicken salad sandwich with mayonnaise and then go back out on trail. But here, you can get all sorts of good food and have it prepped and ready to go in the pot when you get to camp. And a fresh meal at camp the first night is a terrific idea. It's absolutely stellar. Great idea. It's also true that in town, you can take your leftover doggy bag from dinner the night before and it will keep as well. Another phenomenal idea. I really, really like that one. And it just keeps your morale up. Don't overlook things like the stovetop stuffing. A lot of people really like stovetop stuffing. And I believe here it was, sorry, I lost your comment there, my friend up here, Doc. You can get the instant powdered gravy. And here he mentions dehydrated beef will work really well. But the powdered gravy on an instant side of stovetop is what they call sort of hiker Thanksgiving, and it's a great meal as well. So thank you for that, Doc. I'm glad that you sent that. And just for putting in that comment, Doc, you have won a new car. That's right, everybody. We cannot have a live stream without Doc winning something. So Doc, send me your address. I will mail you a brand new car. It will be in the mail. I'll use one of those $15 single price sort of ship everything and get that up to you. So basically that's that. Last one that I'm going to share with you here is powdered broccoli cheddar soup, instant mashed potatoes, equal parts of both. So take a half a cup of each, put them together, and then put a cup of hot water in it and just keep adding hot water until it's the consistency you want, and it's absolutely delicious. So just remember that sort of really simple one. That's a nice one to pack up beforehand. And if you want to talk to me a little bit about polenta, then I'll do that as well. But that's sort of the leukotape of my dining experience there. So those folks who know me know that I talk about polenta as much as I talk about leukotape. And where are we going to be without a conversation about leukotape? So let's pause on the food for a minute. Here's what we got. Leukotape, for those of you who have not heard me talk about it before, leukotape is basically, it's a PT tape that they use in physical therapy. It will stick to your skin when you get a hot spot for a blister, and it will stay on there until you take it off. If you're walking hundreds of miles or you're walking through water, doesn't matter. It's just a really great thing to have with you. There is a link for it. It's about $9 a roll. It's so much better than moleskin. I've used moleskin before. It just sticks better to your skin, and you don't have to take the whole roll. But if you're going with a group of people, take the whole roll and have one person carry it. It's just tremendous. I don't know what they put in it. It's probably magic and the tears of a bald eagle, but it sticks to your skin and it's absolutely fantastic. So make sure that you have that one. Here, let's talk about here some couscous. That's a great idea. High Five Hikes. Let's talk about why couscous is great. And here's the deal. When you're talking about pastas, right? If you have a pasta that is really small, so think about like orzos, think about couscous, even some of those smaller ones. Sometimes they'll sell you just the broken pieces of spaghetti in a bag, or you can break up your own angel hair, whatever it is. It's great because it packs down really, really small, and then it expands when you cook it in your pot. And so couscous is great also because it's, as you point out, High Five, it's so very versatile. In fact, you can put powdered milk and some cinnamon and a little bit of brown sugar in it, and it makes a great breakfast. So it's another one as well to have on that rotation. Same thing with orzo and a number of others. The lesson here, the big piece is, have a handful of these easier meals to pick up at grocery stores just in mind. And when you go in, you can save so much money and time when you get in, and you don't really have to stress a whole lot about that. No, those dinners work really well. There's also Backcountry Foodie did a big stretch of the trail here, and she offers, her name is Erin Mayhew. It's spelled Aaron. She's got a really great website with lots of great options, particularly for those folks who are more health conscious than it sounds like I am, and then also really helpful for people with dietary restrictions. And so she's got a great resource. I think it might cost money to be a part of, to have a membership and access to everything. But if you have dietary restrictions, I would say it's well worth it, specifically because if you don't have to buy custom foods for gluten sensitivity, you're going to save that and have a lot more variety and probably better quality. I'm just guessing by what I've seen with gluten-free foods, it often can be not as great. And I'm not a picky eater. I'll eat gluten-free stuff. I'll also, I like to mention to people when I eat gluten-free stuff, and I like to mention when I eat gluten stuff. So I say, listen, everybody, did you know that I eat gluten? Yeah, I'm not sensitive to it at all. And I just tell everybody I see, I make sure that they know that I'm not gluten intolerant. And it's just, I think people appreciate knowing my dietary unrestrictions, right? Sorry, everybody. I'm not trying to make light of celiac. I know that that's a serious condition. I'm just making some dumb jokes. Just a dumb guy here making some dumb jokes, having a good time. All right, here we've got a Chuck Norris joke here from Dave. Chuck Norris used leukotape to patch a gash he got after he wrestled a bear to the ground with his bare hands. That's absolutely right. The only thing you missed is it was actually 3 bears, and he had leukotape covering his eyes just to add a little bit of challenge there. And he sprayed himself in the eyes with bear spray, like one person I know who shall remain nameless, other than his name rhymes with salmon, and he lives in Montana. All right, everybody, it is that time. We got another one of these graphics. Are you ready? Here we go. All right, let's talk some stories. So I want to talk to you all about my first time camping alone, and specifically, I want to talk to you all about this one because when we are thinking about going on a hike, I think a lot of times folks, when you're going out for the first time, you're nervous, you want everything to be perfect. You've probably been scared of some things, and it's tough. I mean, it is pretty scary. So, this was when I first, before I even got into backpacking, I was actually a motorcyclist, which obviously I look like the guys you see in films and I behave like a biker. I have tattoos everywhere, and I'm pretty rough and tumble. So basically, I was doing motorcycle trips and I thought that I would camp along the way. And so I was in Chicago visiting a friend of mine before I lived here. And I rode my motorcycle from Chicago and I was targeting a state park just over the line in South Dakota. So I rode and rode and rode, and I was determined to make it as far as I could without using interstate. So I was in Iowa, which is one of the more scenic places with just towering mountains and waterfalls everywhere. You can't see them because the corn obscures the view, but they're there. I know it. I can feel it. So I'm riding through Iowa all day, and it's about 8 o'clock. I pull into the state park and I sort of putz around the park, and there's nobody. And when I say nobody, I mean there's not a park ranger there. The place is a ghost town. I'm putzing around looking, and it's open, so I could camp there. So I'm too freaked out by this, right? So I get back on my motorcycle and I see another state park about 2 hours away, and I ride and ride and ride. And I get there, almost hit a deer on the way, very scary. And I get there and it's pitch black dark. Everybody's in bed. And the place where car campers are supposed to park is like a walk in site. So you have to go about 100 yards into the woods. And I'm not about to get Blair Witched on my first trip, right? So I decide, you know what? I'm going to go and camp here where the RVs are because I could just pull my motorcycle up there. So I have brand new gear, mind you. This is my first time setting up everything. I don't even have a headlamp at this point, right? I don't have a flashlight. I'm using a cell phone. And this is before the days when every cell phone had the little button to turn your flash into a flashlight. So I'm using my cell phone to kind of see everything, and I'm setting up my tent for the first time. But one thing that's important to know about this is that I'm a rule follower. I get very nervous if I'm not following the rules, and I know I'm not supposed to be there because I don't have an RV and they have clear signs, RVs only. So I'm setting it up and it's super still, clear night. There's not a cloud in the sky, no breeze or anything. And I'm very tense. So every time I'm clicking a button or zipping anything, I'm jumping. It's nerve wracking. You know, I'm already kind of a high strung dude. And so as I'm doing this, I'm setting up this tent. and there's this like hill behind the campsite. That'll come into play later. So as I'm doing this, a tiny voice cries out to me. It says, "Hello, hello." And my heart starts thumping, and I'm looking everywhere. It's not a far away voice, it's a small voice. And I'm looking everywhere, cannot find it. And then it starts calling my name. And it says, "Hello, Jared, Jared." Honest hand to heavens, I thought whatever it was had magic and knew my name somehow. So my heart's thumping. I don't know what's going on. And at that point, I realized that as I was using my cell phone as a flashlight, I dialed my friend Lauren in Tennessee, and she was trying to answer me at 11:30 at night in Tennessee. Might have even been 12:30. I don't know. It was late. So there, I'm panicking. So I hang up on her and she keeps calling back, but I keep jumping and panicking. So I finally send her a text and I say, "Do not call me again. I'll call you in the morning." And then I try to go to sleep, have a tough night, get back on my motorcycle. And the next morning, all I remember is I went to a Perkins. I just wanted pancakes. And my hands were so frozen cold that I couldn't take my helmet off. And it took forever. And when I finally did, I walked into this Perkins, and this old lady came up to me and had a coffee pot and said, "Come on, Shug." Walked me to a table, put down the coffee pot, and walked away and never said another word to me and just brought me food. And so that was the whole exchange. I still love that. She was just a terrific sort of a hero that day. But yes, anyway, that's my story, everybody. And the whole point of that is there are going to be some hitches. You're going to have some problems. You're going to have some great stories about it. And that's really kind of the crux of this is you're far more likely on your first few trips out there, even after the fact, you're far more likely to have great stories from the misadventures than ending up getting revenanted out in the woods, right? You're far more likely to make it through and figure out problems and sort of have great stories. So just know that it's okay. You're going to be fine. And if you are nervous, again, reach out to me, reach out to Everyday Backpacker, Dave Off Grid, Unlikely Hiker, Girl Plus Dog Adventures, any of the folks here, and just ask them, do you have any tips for your first night camping? And they will be happy to share with you as well. So it's really just a welcoming community. But let's get back to the Colorado Trail, which is why we're all here. Yes, here. Perkins Off Trail Magic. That's 100% the case here. And I tell you what a day, right? So let's do the last of these. Let's do the last of these banners here, everybody. You'll have to let me know if you think these are hokey or fun. I think they're fun, but all the same, I also, I'm a horse of a different feather, right? Is that even the saying? Horse of a different feather? I don't know. Here we're going to do a little bit of a... Okay, so let's talk here about my favorite segment of the Colorado Trail, and many folks' favorite segments of the Colorado Trail here, segment 23. And segment 23 is great for a lot of people, not just because it was Michael Jordan's number, and every kid who grew up in the 90s loves 23, right? That's just empirically true. If you ask somebody who is currently between the ages of 35 and 45 what their favorite number is, I promise you it's 23. But basically, segment 23 is really tremendous. It's beautiful. It's a little bit past Lake City. So you leave Lake City, and then you get up into this area where you're way up above tree line, and you'll drop down this really, really steep forest road. I mean, really steep to the point that you're going to need trekking poles, even though it's a forest road, because the gravel will feel really unstable under your feet. And you'll get down to the bottom, and that's where you're going to start segment 23. And I just want to give you a picture of what we're looking at here. So I've got a little bit of video for you so you can kind of see what 23 looks like. I'll talk over it a little bit. But again, I'm happy to talk over any of these segments, and I'll be happy to tell you what I love about certain segments and what the unique challenges are. So here's what we've got. When you start segment 23 here, you're going to start climbing up this big basin here, and you'll see the little saddle you'll go through over there to the right now going off screen. So it's a really cool climb. It's not incredibly difficult necessarily. You might be tired and it could be challenging, but it's just really incredible. And then you'll drop down in the Cataract Lakes. But then you're going to end up after that, you're just way above tree line in this really beautiful area. For those folks who are worried about storms, notice here how much time you have to see the clouds rolling in. So right here, this is a place where you definitely want to keep your eye on the clouds and make sure that if they come in, you've got a plan to dip down into lower elevations. But that's one of the things that I want to make sure everybody knows as well, is that I know I saw a lot of comments about people were really concerned about lightning storms, and rightfully so. You Let me start that sentence over. You want to take lightning storms seriously, that's for sure. But what's left out of it is often we think of lightning storms like we experience in our everyday, right? So we think like one day or 1 minute you're sitting on your couch eating popcorn, hanging out with your dog and watching reruns of MacGyver, and next thing you know, it's thundering outside. But truth be told, when you're on trail, generally speaking, you'll have lots of time to see those storms coming in. So you'll have time to find a side trail, get off trail, get down low, find a safe spot. So for example, I was actually just before this spot here last year, and a lightning storm pushed in, and I was able to see it and roll down the hill. Not really actually roll down the hill, but you get the idea here. It's like get down below tree cover. You don't want to be the tallest thing in the vicinity. And so it's just a really great way to sort of experience the trail, is to be watching everything, taking it all in, make sure you keep an eye on those storms and make sure that you have those plans ready. Now that kind of brings us here to this guy, which is still one of my favorite resources, is the data book. So if you don't have it, you kind of see the green screen is getting a hold of it, but the data book is just a phenomenal resource, and it's great even beyond, say, Far Out or the apps. Specifically, it's great because it will have the side trails connected to the CT. So for example, here you have the side trails where when you get up there, you'll have these sort of split offs where you might see a storm coming in, and next thing you know, how are you going to get down? But if you have the app, you won't necessarily know there's a side trail that dips down. But if you have the data book, you will know that, and you'll know where road crossings are. You'll even have a sense of where the tree line is, often in the data book, which you would get on Far Out as well. And here, Christina, this is a really great one here. Can you talk to me about segments like Indian Trail Ridge? Cough, cough, might be scary for my friend, not me. Okay, yes, me, who's scared of heights. Christina, I am terrified of heights. Other story time before the motorcycle incident, I fell from a ladder and I broke my back in 3 places and broke my wrist. And it was a nightmare. And so I can't even look at people at heights anymore without being scared. And I love Indian Trail Ridge. It is one of my favorite places. I actually might have some video here for you all to get a sense of what we're talking about. So Indian Trail Ridge, Christina, this is what we're looking at. And what I want you to notice when I show you this video, everybody, is notice that, yeah, it's steep on each side, but you would have to it would be comical how far you'd have to trip and roll and bounce and be shoved before you're actually rolling down the hill. So heights might be scary, but I promise you, if I can do it, you can do it. So this is what you're... You'll notice here, this area is about 15, 20 feet wide. The camera, remember, it's on a GoPro. So when you're looking at that, I'm gonna play it again. When you're looking at it, it's on a GoPro, so the fisheye kind of makes it look narrower than it is, but it's really, really wide. This is the narrowest point of the Indian Trail Ridge, and it is absolutely spectacular. Now, what's nice about the Indian Trail Ridge is we can get into the geography of it a little bit. But Indian Trail Ridge is specifically positioned where you will know if there's a storm coming. You 100% will know, because it will be looking off to the west and you will be able to see that storm coming. And so in that event, what's nice is there's a lot of tree cover before you get up on the ridge, and it's about a 4-mile walk. There's not a ton of elevation gain and fall. There is some. So if you're really exhausted, I wouldn't tackle it, especially if the weather looks threatening at all. And so here, Kathy, sorry, happy storm there. Indian Trail Ridge is in segment 27 near the end. It's sort of the last 4 miles of segment 27. It's almost toward the end, and I would say it's really one of the last really spectacularly beautiful spots on the trail. Now, that section is stunning. You will have lots of time to know if the storm's coming in. Personally, what I like to do when I'm nervous about a section like that, Christina, is I set up camp the night before and start it and do it early in the morning. And that's always a great way to go, because you don't have time to overthink it. You'll be there before the storms hit. Typically, the storms are about noon to 4 o'clock, depending, often about 2 o'clock. It's what I would recommend for everybody is, if you're nervous about these sections, think about the ways that you will be excited about them. I don't like heights for sure, but I love that stunning view. And I love the idea that at the end of it, that I have this memory of something that I accomplished. I climbed Half Dome after breaking my back, and it's one of the best experiences I've had. I'm not going to do it again, not ever, but I will 100% look at different segments, not as a place where I need to be afraid, but a place where I certainly need to be mindful of what I'm doing. But also, there's so much beautiful stuff up there that truly, when you're on the Colorado Trail, so many of the most beautiful things come with some level of exposure, right? So it could be exposure to weather, elements, but it's all going to be, the balance is just not even close, where the beautiful stuff outweighs the scary stuff most of the time, as long as you're smart and kind of have time. But it comes back to what we talked about at the start of this whole live stream. Time is your resource, it's your friend. That if you are in a section where you feel like you have to go through because you're on a time crunch, that's when you get into real trouble, right? That's when you end up making bad decisions. So giving yourself lots of time. Remember, every hike's legitimate. There's no reason you have to go do all 500 miles in 1 year, that you can hike it and come back in tag sections later. It's a great idea to enjoy your hike and don't let that time crunch stop you. So if you don't have time to hike the whole thing, hike the loop or hike half of it, or stop early, or hike what you can and then hop off when you need to. But make sure you're not pushing yourself in a situation where you're going to put yourself in a bad situation. Jerry here, who is hashtag heading out on the Wiminoosh and is going to be hitting some of these areas here. There is a camping spot in the woods before the ridge, 100%. There are a lot of them, actually. They're dry camping spots, but there is a seasonal stream before it that will be running this year, presumably, as long as you're not going through, say, mid to late September. I would assume it's going to be running, but it is in a dry stretch where Taylor Lake is the end of a stretch of, I think, about 14 miles. Somebody correct me here. And there are a few places where basically you can head back down and end up in the trees. And here, Girl Plus Dog Adventures, who is class of 2021, there are some, but not good, and a bailout spot right before. There's fantastic camping several miles before in tree coverage on a ridge line. 100%, 100% here. And here, by the time Sobo hits segment 27 at Indian Trail Ridge, it'll not be an issue. That's right, Tim, take in the beauty, really appreciate it. And you can, Jerry, absolutely, there's a spot to wait out the storm. I have a pretty good sort of time lapse. I don't have it uploaded, or I'd share it with you all, but I shot a beautiful time lapse from in the trees just before hopping onto the ridge, watching the storm across the valley. And it really is stunning. I mean, as scary as storms can be, there's something really beautiful about watching them in a distance. And so absolutely wait out that storm. And there are spots that you can wait out the storm. And that holds true of just about every time you are in a spot where you will be exposed. There will be trees where you can wait it out. But again, time is your friend here. Make sure that you have lots and lots of time so that you are able to wait it out and not make bad choices. The trail's not going anywhere. It'll be here next year. And there'll be places to go back. And I started the trail as a lasher, meaning a section hiker doing big chunks. Totally legitimate way to go. And you might end up an incidental lasher, meaning that you might plan to finish the whole trail and then end up stopping early. And that's okay too. Remember, it's not a competition. There's nothing. I mean, you may have this sort of pressure inside, but that pressure can often get in the way of enjoying what's in front of you and what's possible. Because if you're not going to make it anyway, you don't want something to sort of ruin that, right? I hope that makes sense. I know I'm getting a little bit hippy dippy here, but I promise you the trail is just an absolutely incredible experience. Make sure that as you're thinking over all of this, that you reach out to folks and ask those questions here. I want to remind you here, be sure that you like and subscribe, please. That would be a big help. Find me on Instagram and shoot me a message at Backcountry Champion. And while I'm at it, if you've sent me a message and I've not responded to it, there's a good chance it's just been in the sort of the request box. So feel free to send me a follow-up and say, hey, listen, what's going on? I sent you a message, and I promise I'm not trying to ignore you, but sometimes just being an old man and not knowing how to work technology, I might overlook something. And don't forget that you can send me a message on Instagram with if you're comfortable passing over your address, send it over and say, hey, Snackbox, hit me up with an outside comfort zone sticker. I will get one in the mail to you. It's totally free. It's just my way of saying thank you for being part of this community and just joining us. This is absolutely one of my favorite things here. Don't forget here to check out here. Everyday Backpacker is going to be doing the live stream, joined by Chad, who is the broiest of bros. So that could be a lot of fun coming up later this week, I believe. You'll have to let us know, Kalman. So very grateful for you all. It looks like we're pretty close to the end. If you have any final questions here, oh, here. Here, I can't let you forget here. If you reach out to me and ask for an Outside Comfort Zone sticker, you will get a Girl Plus Dog Adventures sticker as well. I don't want to out her here, but she got a big crush on me, and I don't know. I mean, she keeps calling me, texting me all the time, and if you have any advice for how to deal with somebody who's got that level of a crush on you, let me know, because I'm not really sure. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'll hike with her someday or something. I don't know. We'll see. Okay, everybody. Well, thank you all so much again. Send me messages if you have questions. Feel free to reach out. I've also scheduled with a couple of folks. I've scheduled time to meet with folks. So if that's of interest to you, if you are thinking, you know what, I'd really like to figure this out, but I have some special considerations, some of those me questions, not we questions, and you just want some time to talk with me, send me a message and we'll be happy to I'll be happy to meet with you and find some time to talk over your strategies or answer some of those specific questions. And if I can't answer them, I'm also happy to sort of figure out exactly where you go to get those answers as well. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Happy Storm. Thank you, John. I'm glad you got those stickers. I'm sorry it took so long. Tim, I will get those stickers to you if I need to hand deliver them or send them with a passenger pigeon. Thank you all so very much. You are the best. I'm so grateful for each and every one of you here tonight. Take care, everybody. I hope you have a great weekend. Thank you, Brent, as well. Thank you all. Take care. Have a great week.